for having the Q&A, and thank you to Sabrina for your mission and your ministry and all you do. I don't understand everything, but I'm learning still. But my question is about the death of my parents. They died 9 days apart during COVID. And Sabrina, you talk about COVID, and I hear about a COVID program on the electromagnetic spectrum. I've heard you mention that before, but I have so many questions. They were healthy, they were really hard workers. They didn't want to go to the hospital. It was before nobody would give out ivermectin. So I guess my question is, what is COVID, and if it's involved with the electromagnetic spectrum and warfare, then why does it seem to respond to ivermectin? And I'm just so confused, and I have so many questions about what I could have done differently, in the lead up to when they actually had to be hospitalized. So that's what is your take on what is it exactly?
Oh, well, that's a really good question and a great way to start it off. People have asked me this many times in the last several months, and we know that what is inside of these different shots, even most recently, and I'm just referring to Todd Callender's explanation so that I can expand on it. Everybody started getting upset about graphene, and then nobody knew what that was or what does it have to do with anything. And then nanotechnology, which has been around for 20 years. It's not new, but nobody knew that, okay? And the human body is connected to the cloud. Now, this is the number one thing to understand when I hear someone as kind as yourself speaking to taking care of your parents, and you're trying to make the right decisions, and you're looking for what stimuli is affecting their body, okay? I put some images up on my brand new X account here, and one of the top ones says molecular communication theory application to human health. Human body communication is what it's called. But here is how it works, how the bees signal the flowers. Your body's cellular structure doesn't use a cell phone signal to tell other cells what to do. It uses molecular communication, molecules, just little molecules that signal one another. That is the system of your body and our natural environment that all these sensor technologies are manipulating. They are manipulating these molecules from the outside of your body, from the inside of your body. Now, when we say, well, what is COVID really? What is this thing, right? How it's a biocyber interface, that's number one, as explained by Todd Callender recently about there wasn't graphene in all the shots necessarily, but there were components that when injected into the human body, combined together to create this graphene ferritin substrate. Now, for those of you, if I say substrate, and you're a normal person, you're not in chemistry, you don't work at a biolab, you're like, what are you talking about? And maybe you're in soil or you're from one of those areas, so maybe it makes sense to you. But in case it doesn't, please, I want everybody who's here, you're very intelligent, or you wouldn't be here. Every person is smart in their own way. So substrate is the top section that they can lay across a cell so that when the cell tries to do what it's made to do normally, it doesn't. Additionally, this substrate is accessible from outside the body with something that Rice University calls Tesla fluorescence, something the rest of us know as, hey, does your phone work? Unfortunately, I am not kidding. The same exact electromagnetic soup, some people have referred to it as the soup, all these signals and wireless, affects our molecules, affects our cells, affects the way the birds fly, affects all molecular signaling in the soil, in the air, in the water, and in us. So they have a system called the Global Information Grid. And in 2017, they had set up with the appropriate divisions, with the ITU and the IEEE, which are all just acronyms for the people who write the rules for the wireless systems of the whole world. And in 2017, they already had what's called a cyber physical backbone. Again, most people going, what is that all about? Well, they want robotics. They want self-driving cars, right? Oh, yeah, okay. So the cyber physical systems are, oh, yeah, we're doing robotics and self-driving cars and human augmentation. Well, nobody mentioned that. Nobody mentioned the biosensors were commercially available to doctors in 2012. So 5 years after the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, gave permission for remote health monitoring, 5 years later, they produced the cyber physical backbone to make it easier to remotely monitor and log in to patients. Now, I say that logging into the body, and everybody goes, wait a minute, that's A, impossible, and then B, they don't understand there's already a system in place to look through the veins and arteries for these types of computer systems and software that are designed for what they call today precision AI healthcare. So what they did was, under the guise of what Catherine Watt spoke to in regards of weaponizing the healthcare system. That's correct. Every human body is connected to this Internet of Medical Things. If you wear a Fitbit or something, it takes more energy out of your body, etc. But this system's been running, this Internet of Medical Things, since 2012. 2017, they get a backbone. And then here comes the late 2019, 2020. Oh my gosh, lockdown, what's going on? It's a bat soup in Wuhan. Nobody has a clue. In reality, in 2019, our biolab, Battelle Laboratories, was already overriding people's neurons while they're sleeping, mandated for something called neuromodulation. Now, before you start thinking, oh, they're mind controlling people, not necessarily. Some of it was mandated for physicians to log in for people with chronic pain. See, when they started testing these systems, like in 2014 in our college textbook, they didn't start out testing on healthy citizens. They started testing on our senior citizen homes so that the nurse at the desk in the senior home didn't have to physically walk down to the room of the senior to drug them. If you have your hands available to you, it's wireless drugging. First article will say nature, and you click on images, it's right there. Yeah. And the CDC is watching things like what I would imagine Rachel here might have seen, the CoV-W band. Yeah, those are the bodies that have COVID, and they watch it all the same way they watch our phones. Our bodies have a natural electrical and magnetic system. It's part of our anatomy. Our heart is electrical, our body is electrical. Our cells are signaling one another. They did not give people a new technology. However, the biocyber interface is what it's called. And it hooks to a whole bunch of different things, not just nano, not just their electronic warfare or cognitive electronic warfare systems. So the people that were selected, I cannot say with authority why certain people were selected and others weren't. I have conjecture regarding arguments in 2008 over something that was called Obama death panel databases at that time, that they didn't want to go down that road. But to tell everyone that there's this horrible epidemic virus when we had already been watching those body area networks with the help of the FCC and the physicians since 2012 in preparation for remotely monitoring patients in 2012, solidified in 2017. And then 2 years later, here's Project Salus database in the hospital, working with someone called an intensivist, who then makes the decisions on who's going to live and who isn't. And that why did ivermectin or these other different things work? That depends on your DNA, your epigenetics, your literal physical environment, how many bodies around you are already augmented. See, this biocyber interface that they injected everyone into, as Todd Callender explained, it had bits and pieces that then pull themselves together using your body, your cells, your veins and arteries, the kinetic blood flow to keep broadcasting outside your body. They're not using technology. They're using and manipulating your own cell structure, how your cells move through you, how often they communicate with your vasculature, and they're manipulating that from outside of you talking back and forth to this additional technology if you're injected. If you're not injected and you're like, no, 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 I didn't get anything. How often do you hang around a bunch of people that do? I have bad news for you then. It's called load balancing. They've turned your body into a little network that you probably never wanted to be. But your body's talking to anything with the Internet of Things, your smart fridge, other bodies. Now, not only can you not see the data by federal law, but you're also not allowed to know how it works. You're not allowed to talk about it, and you're not allowed to know that that's your anatomy. So you're trying to take care of your parents. They're healthy. You've got, I think you mentioned like 9 days apart. They go, you're like, what could I have done? What could I have done differently? The problem is in the red blood cells. The problem is in if you're around the tech all the time and their load balancing bodies are testing for other types of data dredging communication. Like they want to know, how are you driving your car? What's physically in your house? See, nobody's thinking like that. None of us would, because none of us understand that they're looking through our own eyeballs. They use the eyeballs as a biosensor. And folks, if I say anything and you're like, well, where's that? Please consider looking at the Rumble channel. Just type in Synergy. Many of our newer videos are labeled appropriately. So if I say something like bio-optical biosensors using your eyeballs as a biosensor, in my video selection there, it's labeled so that you can watch it, find the paper, see for yourself. But they essentially have something called human activity recognition radar. Now, how do they have that? So you mean to tell me that when everybody was busy, scared to death of this invading virus, the CDC got busy making sure that people's basic human anatomy inside your red and white blood cells, instead of doing what they're supposed to do, just naturally on their own, are heavily manipulated to broadcast data, weaken the immune system, and then they have genetic suppression. They have people on grids for metagenomics, in which they log in, change out your DNA in order to load balance body area networks. So the epigenetics is who you're around and what you're around. And a lot of people don't have the ability, I don't know about y'all, but I can't just jump up, sell my house, and move somewhere tomorrow. Okay? So when you cannot change your physical environment, now you're looking around trying to figure out, well, how do I detox? You can't detox your own DNA. And biosensors are made out of your own cells. So unless you're turning off your own DNA, there's no off grid. And I just want to say, Rachel, because I'm trying to explain it to you in the biggest, like a semicircle roundabout way I can for the people who follow up from you with questions. Not only was it pre-planned so that they would have their precision AI medicine, it was also pre-planned for the C40 agenda. People don't realize Agenda 2030 is done. They don't understand people not only read your mind, they read your whole body, because your whole body is electrical. And for certain people, now again, this part that I'm about to say is conjecture. I cannot prove it with a white paper. But back in 2008, with the disagreements between the Tea Party people, Hillary's healthcare thing, there are people here, I'm sure, who could speak to it more fluently than I. There were so many arguments about what they did then, targeting databases of conservatives or databases of local businesses they didn't want around anymore. This entire system that we're dealing with all these biosensors and whatnot, is literally electronic warfare under your skin. It's called biosurveillance. So there's your parents, they're healthy, and things seem okay. But as soon as they go in, I know from my friend, she never came out and she had a no vent. And then people on the outside, even some doctors were arrested for using vitamin C. So you have a system here that started deploying with the help of the Federal Communications Commission in 2012. Project Salus, the database they used for COVID, is from 1954. And then, as if all that's not enough, in 2019, Battelle Biolabs with DARPA's non-invasive neurotechnology, N3. They read right to neurons, it's no problem. It's part of their super soldier program of augmenting humans. And all of this was pre-planned and done because, according to the Agenda 2030 Biodigital Convergence Goals, everybody was busy screaming about Greta and climate change, like they all know what it is. So they all, they're all upset about that. But they don't admit the sensors in the soil, the water, the air. They don't admit to weather control treaties in our Library of Congress. And they don't admit to the biosensors or the sensors open systems architecture they use with the military for geofences, locking people down. So while we're all talking about climate change and everybody's arguing, they're installing the 6G cells, hooking all these bodies up to the Internet of Everything on what's called a visible light communication network, which means you don't need a cable modem. All you need is light and sound. Meanwhile, everyone's still locked up in the arguments of should I have taken the vaccine or not, and they're putting it in people in any way that they can. And what are they putting in people? Well, it depends. Where do you live? Who do you interface with? How big is your bank account? And you will say, well, Sabrina, how would they know all that? On the second image on my post here, it says brain computer interface, and underneath it, it says feature extraction. And people talking about the digital ID just left out that the DigiID actually comes from around 2009 to 2011. So you already have one, they just haven't made it your primary way of interacting yet. The feature extraction are the things I just mentioned. How much money did they make? Did they have big retirement and pensions that would need to be paid? These financial classifiers are inside those feature extractions. And once you're in the hospital, it's one thing for you to just go out that way and, nurses and other people who have no clue in the world and are willing to do anything for $1, they'll just take you out. Other people who would ask questions, they were quickly iced out, as we saw in some testimonies that were then quickly scrubbed, because they're like, wait a minute, you're hurting people. And these are people, nurses, who are involved in palliative care. They knew that these, what do they call COVID protocols were very bad for the health of the patient. They didn't understand why. Now, if you're someone who comes from bioinformatics and data analytics, if you took a contrast, if you were allowed to take a look at those databases, you're going to see feature values. You're going to see them in comparison with things like I just said. How much money do you make? How much money do we have to pay you the longer you live? Is your body able to put into the circular economy? As in, are you old enough? Are you healthy enough? Are you talking to your therapists and doing what you're supposed to be doing with your social media? Nobody is considering any of that, of course not, because nobody knows that that's what they're using, these feature values, to make decisions on people's cellular structure. And then they say, well, we're just watching people from home so that the hospital, the patient, can be more comfortable. Then they just don't bother to mention that it is a biocyber security system controlled by the Department of Homeland Security for a reason. I'm going to go ahead and drop this link down here too. Just give me a moment, if you would, folks. The reason is human augmentation. It is very real. And let's see if I can just post this quick. The reason that it's important to understand, Rachel, how much it's not your fault in so many different ways. I'm sure you know that. I'm sure wise people have told you that. But I'm here to tell you it's really not your fault. There's so many components of this system they kept hidden. With the good people that were trying to speak up were quickly gotten rid of. The overarching plan is human augmentation. They know this. The countries decided to do it without the opinion of ethicists or the public in order to expedite Agenda 2030 goal number 3, which is human health and well-being, human augmentation. If their DNA wasn't strong enough when the Tesla phoresis interacts with what has been placed inside of them or what has manifested inside of them from water, breathing, whatever, or maybe they took a medicine that was coated in graphene. They put the stuff in just about everything. When their body doesn't react properly, the way these papers are written, it's just a loss. They're not interested because all humans will be augmented. All right, so I finished up that large explanation again, hopefully to help start this out in a good way, say some things that might trigger some other questions for people. But while I'm finishing here, I would like to invite Rachel to speak up again if I was unable to answer a component of what she was looking for. I'm going to post this paper.